Hi all, this is Cube Factor. This is my first ever chess video, and I've decided for my first video I would touch on one of my favorite openings, and also being a little bit lazy, but I am going off of a blog post that I made on chess.com. This video is going to go over one of the variations in the modern Scandinavian, and let's see if I can get this diagram to do as I tell it to do. I've had some issues getting it to back up here. Go back. There we go. Okay. So we got e4, d5, e takes d5, knight f6. A calling card, of course, for the modern Scandinavian. Now, after knight c3, I do think that it's better to go ahead and exchange the knights off the board. The reason for that being is one of the biggest instigators for black when he has the queen on d5 is this knight right here. And after that exchange in the center, we have a little bit more leeway, a little bit more freedom on the squares here. So knight takes knight, queen takes knight. And we'll scoot on down here. Now if white decides to respond, knight f3, and I don't know why that's already... Okay, if white responds, knight f3, we're going to go ahead and pin that knight. Noteworthy is a lot of times black is going to use this pin. This happens consistently in the modern Scandinavian. It's a good way to get the bishop activated and off this back rank and give us the option of castling queenside early if we need to. Now if black blocks the pin, or I'm sorry, if white blocks that pin with bishop e2, we're going to go ahead and continue development with knight c6, and if they hassle that bishop, we're just going to go ahead and back it off here. And if white does push the matters with g4, bishop to g6 is a very strong diagonal for black, and then of course white would no longer have the option of castling kingside, or if he did so would probably be punished for it. Following castle here and the castle here, and let's see, rook e1 and bishop g6. Going ahead and harassing that diagonal and getting some force there, and thinking about pushing this e-pawn to e6 and getting that bishop in the game. If anybody has any feedback on this particular line with knight f3, go ahead and post it. And of course the same thing with the other lines here. Scoot on down here to move 5, queen f3. It is my preference, and I'm not sure what the main line here is. And that's another thing too. Take this video with a grain of salt, because a lot of these moves are my personal preference, and it's not necessarily any sort of dictum passed down from great grandmasters or anything. A lot of this has been self-research, and so there are going to be holes in the opening, which of course is why one of the reasons that I'm posting this video is because I do want feedback and any sort of improvements that I can get in my game from the community. I appreciate it. Going ahead and exchanging queens here, you'll see that this kind of develops into a harmless opening, but I still enjoy it for the simple fact that if I do simplify this early in the game, this is a position that I've seen before and that I'm comfortable with. And if white hasn't done a lot of prep work with the Scandinavian, I'm not sure that they would be familiar with this. I'm curious to know if this type of position transposes from other openings. Maybe some feedback on the pawn structure here and what black's strategic signposts are. Scooting on down. And yes, I think that's maybe 3 times that I've said scooting. If d4 is a response after the exchange, we're going to go ahead and develop the knight here. And again, I mentioned that earlier, this is somewhat of a constant in the Scandinavian. And you'll notice turn 7, Black's already castled queenside, very aggressive, a lot of pressure on this pawn. And then, of course, keeping pressure on the pawn. Now, I want to note something too, because when I put together this blog, my intentions were to not go more than 5 moves deep in any variation, just to use it kind of as an introductory to people who hadn't really played with the opening very much and didn't want to go 15 moves deep. But I think there was an inaccuracy here to suggest that white would play knight takes e5 on move 9, and it doesn't play out completely in my diagram here, but I think after queen takes bishop, knight takes knight, pawn takes knight, and then queen takes, and black goes up a pawn. So that's not white's best move. I'm not sure on the fly what their best move is in that position, but any kind of feedback there, of course. And I've got some subordinate variations here too that are worth looking at, but I'm not going to go into all that right now and get long-winded. Okay. I actually found knight e2 as an option in my analysis with Fritz. Now I've not seen anybody play this in any sort of one-on-one counters online or at the local club or anything, but since it did come up as a viable option, I thought I'd go ahead and include it in the blog post that I made here. But development seems to go as per usual. Checking on e5 there. In the analysis, it also suggested queen e6, I believe, but that just seemed a little unnatural. Blocking this in here, blocking this e6 pawn push is an option. I'm gonna just kind of play through here. I'm not, like I said, I'm not really sure how often knight e2 is played, and I definitely don't know exactly what the approach would be, but I think this is a fair assessment of how the play might go from that point. And then again, if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. That's why I'm posting the video. I think this is good development by black. Real strong initiative here down the d file. Got some pressure going on here. Just need to get this bishop into play to complete development. But this is equal position, I would say. And if c4, this actually gets played against me somewhat infrequently, I guess, but I do see it from time to time. And before I had really had a chance to dive in and do any kind of prep work for my openings, I wasn't sure how to respond. I do like queen e4 check here. And then if they do black with the queen, which it is probably the best to do that, go ahead and exchange off here, and then kind of feels like it's a start from scratch opening, but I think it's okay. And I won't bother with forcing you to read through the commentary on my blog. If you do want to find it, that's fine. There was some arguments in this variation as to whether or not it is okay for white or better for one or the other. And I do think that it's better if white chooses to give themselves this backward d pawn, just because this queenside castling is coming and this bishop should launch shortly. So I do think this particular position is better for black. But anyway, thanks for sitting through my first video. Please give me some constructive criticism. Don't be too harsh. I'm kind of a softie. And I don't know. Here's to next time. Bye, everybody.